Okay. Let's get this party started. No. Yes, I do. This month, I made a total of $2,400 from pet sitting as not my first, but my second side hustle. I'm a big believer in doing things that are more in alignment with your true interest and abilities, because that's the best way to help your dreams become your reality. It's 6 a.m. sitting here with Piper. There are 3 main reasons that I chose to start pet sitting, besides them being the cutest.
Why is she talking to herself?
Why? One, because my passion my entire life has always been to take care of animals in any kind of way or capacity. I mean, like, not like shoveling their shit all day, but yeah, I've just always looked for jobs in the animal field. 2, I needed a side hustle. I have financial goals and financial plans, and that includes having a full-time job and 2 side hustles. I definitely wanted to make sure that it was something that I could do at 6 a.m. Not really. I mean, I didn't really anticipate the side hustle that I would have to do at 6 a.m., but it's not that bad. And I'm an early riser. Like, I wake up at like 5:30 normally. So, yeah. And then lastly, I realized it might make me a better vet because there's a huge gap in communication between clients and vets. As a vet assistant, you're basically like the middleman messenger between what the client wants and what the vet needs to handle, and how the vet interprets that information into scientific resolutions, or I guess understanding. So yeah, I figured if I spend a lot of time in client's home for at least 50 hours monthly minimum, then I might be able to learn some things about what the general household knows, you know, like based on what kind of treats I always see, what kind of diets I see, what size the cats are. I'm not trying to be judgmental or anything. I'm literally just observing what the general knowledge is in households. And yeah, it's teaching me a lot, to be honest. So I think this is definitely going to make me a better vet. And if you plan on being a vet, I highly recommend doing this on the side or even full time, because as you see from thumbnail how much I make, which I'll go more in depth about it in a little bit, but yeah. Okay, I'm currently at the second house waiting for this cutie pie to start off the morning right, because I have to give an insulin injection. So I decided if I take this baby outside first, maybe they won't be so mad at me when I have to give them their poke. And also I'll be able to time it while they're trying to go inside, because it's kind of hard once they're inside the house and they're wandering around. But yeah, anyways, so I decided it's a good time to kind of talk about what I consider the 2 main approaches to pet sitting and which one I chose. Wait, okay, I gotta keep the mosquitoes off me, so I had to put my hoodie on for a second. I hope I don't look too crazy. We're gonna rock with it. I basically wanted to go over the 2 main approaches to pet sitting, the pros and cons to both, and why I ended up choosing the route that I went. Okay, so basically, as mentioned earlier, you can be an independent contractor or you can work for a pet sitting company. I started out on my own. Oh, okay. I started off kind of offering to do pet sitting in my neighborhood when I was like 8. So I guess technically I was an independent contractor. And yeah, I kind of did similar things throughout my lifetime. I'd also worked for I've actually worked for 2 pet sitting companies and 1 pet dog walking company, which I kind of count it similar, because if you're pet sitting for dogs, a big portion of that is walking them. Yeah, and so the pros of when I was working independently, I had full control over my rates, I had full control over my schedule, I had full control over which types of clients I was and wasn't okay with working with. However, some of the cons to working independently I found were the management that it took. Setting up payment was something that was annoying to do. Some people wanted to be delayed in their payments. Some people wanted to pay cash. Some people didn't. You have to remind people. It was a mess. Or finding apps that people were okay with. It really was kind of difficult in some areas that I thought would be pretty simple and easy. Another con to working independently I found was taxes. You have to sit there and do your taxes in a different way, which is you have to pay a big chunk later rather than having it already taken out, portioned out. You already have somebody that sat there and calculated it. It's getting taken out of your paycheck. You know there's not going to be some big red check in the mail. I don't think they're really going to be red, but anyways, some big red check in the mail saying you owe the IRS some money. So yeah, I think the weight of that can kind of be difficult for some, but it's obviously different for person. And then there's working for a company, which is kind of just basically the opposite to the pros and cons of working independently. So the pros are that you don't have to sit there and worry about your schedule or how you're going to get paid or whether or not you'll be able to get some clients. Oh, because that's another con to working independently, is that you don't know if you'll be able to make certain amounts of money because you can't control how many clients you get. I mean, that's technically true for both, but typically with the pet sitting companies, you're a lot more established with a lot more clients. That's why they need more employees. Speaking of which, I just got a message asking if I would be down to do some evening visits. Yep, I need to make some money. I've got financial goals to hit. Hashtag financial freedom, right, people? I say right before I go to college. But basically, the pros of working with a company are that you have a generally set schedule. You know your rate hourly, so you can kind of guesstimate how much you'll be able to make ahead of time. You don't really have to do a lot of client management. Everything is kind of laid out for you, and your only job is to just make sure that the animal is okay, follow the instructions on the paper, and then account for it. So, yeah. Some of the cons are that you don't have control over your rate, your schedule for the most part. You kind of do. Like, I honestly think it's 50-50 with the schedule, because it's like you have to make it work with what they're looking for, but then also like you're able to tell them like what your availability is, and like you have a pretty good amount of control working with a company, in my opinion. But it also kind of depends what company you're working for, because I definitely remember the company I worked for prior to this one was a lot more strict on how much flexibility I had in choosing my schedule. So yeah, that can definitely be a con. Another pro to working with a company. Hi, Bubba. You ready for your shot? Another pro to working with a company is that you really don't have to be worried about your taxes as much, kind of like the opposite of what I explained, working independently. Another con to working for a company is that there's a weight on your shoulder, and rather than you making all the rules and setting all the standards, you're holding yourself up to somebody else's standard. And for my particular company, it started off with just my boss pet sitting in our area, and so a lot of our clients built a long-term relationship with her and are hoping that through booking her company services that they're getting actually her. So I try to like match her care as much as possible. But yeah, that can be a con for some people. So yeah, I hope that gives an idea of some of the pros and cons that you can get from working independently and for a company. And I think the most important aspect of choosing between these two and choosing to pet sit in general is finding what actually aligns with you and your needs and works for you, because I've benefited kind of equally from the pros and cons of both. Like the grass isn't really greener on any side. You kind of just find what's worth it for you and works for you, and I found what works for me. And so I just really suggest you writing down what kinds of things are worth it for you, what kinds of things aren't worth it for you, what kinds of animals you aren't willing to care for, that kind of thing, before you go into pet sitting. I'm pretty sure you guys can tell by now from the clips and the videos that I work with a pet sitting company. I decided right now in my life that working with a company is better for a few reasons. One, I wanted to make sure that my pay was consistent. I am in a mode in my life where I'm trying to automate my finances so that I'm spending more time paying attention to the things I need to pay attention to and less time doing managing. So I needed to make sure that I would know my schedule ahead of time so that I knew how many clients would it take to get to this number. We stopped moving this around because I wanted to know how many clients I would be taking on for the month, so I knew how to schedule my other positions around it. But then on top of that, I wanted to be able to give myself an idea of how much I might be making from this position so that I could make smart financial decisions and get closer to automating my finances if I can get a good estimate on how much I would probably make. Along with that, It's a lot less management. My taxes, I'm just going to get my form and then I'm just going to file it. Based on what that form says, it's really that simple. I don't have to really track anything that much. They even track my mileage for me and pay me for my mileage, which I really appreciate, because if I was doing this independently, I wouldn't be getting paid for my mileage. I also get paid tips too. So I know some people would say, well, you're more likely to get more tips working independently because they know it's just you and you just built a relationship with the people. And so that would end up paying for your gas and stuff like that. But honestly, I get that benefit regardless. So I chose to work with this particular company because I only cared to work with cats. And I know that I assume that cat people tend to be more weary people, like that just the cat side of the world tends to just be more observant. And so I can imagine it might be a little bit harder for me to try to get clientele, and specifically in the cat world, if I was working independently. But that all depends. If you're an assistant working in a clinic and they allow you to post your pet sitting availabilities to the clients, then it shouldn't be that hard for you. So it really depends on your lifestyle. And then of course, what everybody probably clicked this video for is how I'm paid at this job. I make a minimum of 24 hourly, so I really appreciate that, especially in this economy. And it's adjusted during the holidays. My boss is really, really kind. I get my mileage paid and tips. And I would actually I didn't realize that I got a notification every time I received a tip from a client. And so I looked at the app the other day and found that section and was scrolling for a second, realizing how much I'd gotten in tips. So I really appreciate that transparency in that area as well. So I think the most important part about choosing between these two options is finding the company that works for you. I think you can tell by the reasons why I ended up choosing to work for this company. If some of the things that I found as benefits working for this company are things that you are looking for, write that down as you're picking out what kinds of interest and abilities you have when it comes to approaching this as a side hustle. And then also working with a company, I found that it helped more with my goal of using this as an opportunity to help me become a better vet in the future. My headspace going into each of these houses is, okay, is this animal medicated? Yes or no? What kind of headspace is the owner in when they're approaching their care for this baby? And how is the animal responding to that care? I don't think that that's a mindset I would be able to have if I was working independently. Of course, you can set the standards for what you do independently, but I just feel like I would be in charge of establishing the rules so that I can have those kinds of mindsets going into this, or I would catch myself running into issues all the time if I don't set these rules and boundaries, where my headspace is, did this client pay me before I came here? You know what I mean? Or other factors that go into the relationship that I have with this household. Of course, no matter what's going on in my life and mindset, I'm always going to put the animals first. But yeah, essentially, it makes it easier to just focus on how the animal's doing. Transported to another location while these two eat, I thought it was a good time to finish this. But yeah, this video was for those who plan to get started. However, I can definitely make a more in-depth video for those who have already got it started. But I also just wanted to give a few pieces of advice before you get started. Generally, I don't suggest this job for a lazy person, because it is something that can seem like a lazy job, but at the end of the day, you're caring for something and checking for its well-being, and that can kind of become a task depending on where your mindset's at or what other responsibilities you have in your life. But anyways, if you're passionate, or not passionate, but if you love animals and you have some experience with animals and you live in a generally safe area, or you have access to a generally safe area, and you have a car, I'd say pet sitting is a great side hustle for you. If you don't easily check off all those boxes, then I would suggest being super intentional about what kinds of things would make it worth it for you to take that extra mile to incorporate this into your lifestyle. I'm hoping this video wasn't too underwhelming, but this is just honestly the truth. And I appreciate you for tuning in. Can you say bye?